all day, every day, little reminders of, to keep focused, like where my head was, where I was pointed, because he could see and I couldn't. So it was, and you find when you work, the way we all got to work together, this was one of those, of all the movies and TV shows I've done, this is one of the most symbiotic crews and casts that I've ever worked with. I mean, Chris said several times when working that, dude, this is why I do movies. This movie is why I do what I do. We had the best friendships, we have had the best time together, so I have to tell you, man, what you saw on the screen is a result of the amazing talent and friendship that all of us have shared. What do you think, buddy?
Oh yeah, but I mean, that was, yeah, it was great. It was fun. Everybody was super nice compared to other things. Other crews.
Yeah, name another crew. Let's go here.
But I mean, there was just this one specific AD name.
Let's all go around and share our worst. No, God, no, I don't have a thing. I'm so blessed. Any other questions from the audience? Anyone's got a hand? Who's got a hand? You got a hand.
I got a hand. The sequel. I was gonna ask who's coming back, but dead, so, Courtney. Well, I know he's not dead, but yeah. I know.
I'm not allowed to say anything.
Okay, that's all you need to say.
I know nothing.
That's all you need to say.
I'm coming back as a ghost. And we're gonna ruin the movie.
All right, what's your question?
Oh, well, that was partially along that line, but how about a spin-off series from Blumhouse with you?
Well,
not you.
with me?
Oh, yeah.
You know what? The smartest guy in horror, right here. The smartest guy in any horror film ever made is this guy right here. Right
You will be
here.
fun. I've got a pitch for his show. It would be you with every movie monster ever. Just how you play off of this.
Start with like Nosferatu.
Nosferatu and work your way up.
Right?
Hereditary.
And then every one of the movies, all he does is run out of the house.
Never seen it. I'd watch that. Really? Just got you a huge picture today.
What's your question, buddy?
Was it easier or harder having the lines in the film?
That is a good question. It's an excellent question. It was neither. It was different. It was very, very different because when you have that kind of interaction, when you have dialogue, and you get to work with somebody, you play off their energy in a way that's really multidimensional. This particular character was so, because I didn't have dialogue, was so removed from any kind of intellectual process for me that I actually got to exist in that space as in that being. And there was I never had any intellectual process at all. So I didn't have to think about things that you have to think about so it was a more pure experience at a certain level. And I got to do that once before. I did Buffy the Vampire Slayer, played the same kind of character. So it's a really deeply spiritual experience. So I wouldn't say it's easier or harder, it's just different.
I have a question.
What's your question?
I have a question for our two lovely actors. I'm seriously like dying on screen, or in the process of dying. That whole traumatic ordeal. I'm curious how you approach that. How that, as an actress and an actor, what is it that you bring to that? How do you do that? And how was it? Did you like it?
I was going to have you go first, yeah. So I can think.
Thank you. Well, I've never died before, and especially never died on film before, so really I have no experience. I honestly did not know what I was doing. I didn't know what I was doing, I didn't know how to feel. I just knew that as soon as I was in character and in my costume, and as soon as I was in that bathroom, and as soon as I heard the footsteps, and as soon as I saw the teeth, my natural instincts just took over, and I've said this before, but it wasn't really acting. It was a real, palpable, visceral fear, and I am easy to scare, apparently. So, Oh, it was very emotional. I remember a couple of days afterwards, I felt like I'd ran into a wall and smashed my
Your whole
head.
body, it feels like you're in a car.
Yeah,
It's like,
I
oh,
was
I
aching all
overcome.
over. I'd lost my voice.
Yeah.
I was like, what just happened? Am I actually living still?
That's a good. I know.
Yeah.
There's a kind of a part of that where like after it happens, you're like, am I alive?
Yeah.
Was that real? Like I did that so much that it's like, what is? And to your point, what's also it's like, where it's like, emotionally, I forgot all the great adjectives you used, and I completely forgot them. But it is like, and I said that to somebody earlier if you're here, but it's like. My character, I'm basically in American Pie up until the last 10 seconds of my life. Like, I'm in my own, I'm going to the prom, I'm going to the dance, I'm trying to get the girl, and it's like, it doesn't work out, but it's like, oh, I'm trying to, so it's like, and that's just kind of, and that's when you die, you're living, no one expects to die.
Yeah, that's a really interesting imagery because I felt like I was in a completely different movie as well up until I died. I thought I was in Grows in the Mist. I had no idea I was in a horror film.
You're in like
I
a
was just
you're in
being a
Spotlight.
journalist.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was in Spotlight. So,
I have a question for, sorry, is it Rhian?
yes, Rhian.
Oh,
Rhian. Ian with an R.
My favorite part of the movie was toward the beginning when your character and the other, you're like journalists, I think, and
Podcaster journalist.
That's just like one below. But
Oh,
still,
shit.
good.
No. It's 2019.
so to go into that, in the prison, there's that weird control room. It's got like these odd devices, and to me it looked like you couldn't tell what time period it was exactly or something. And then of course the squares out there where they had Michael Myers. Anyway, I was just curious about. Did the director kind of tell you how to approach that, or did you have some kind of thoughts how you did that?
Well, I believe there were two different locations. The control room was in a real working prison, which was so surreal because the prisoners weren't allowed to come in while we were filming, and they were all just stood at a fence, and I thought they were extras because obviously. So I was just like, hi guys, do you want some tea? I can bring you some tea. And they were like, don't talk to them, they're actually prisoners. I was like, oh, okay. And then the other, the checkerboard location was an old Navy base or something?
No, it was a
Citadel. It was a military.
it was a military academy because
Right,
so
but it wasn't working anymore.
no, it was still an active school. It was just the one day. So the
No one
day,
told me anything.
the day of like the courtyard, like when all that's happening, and Michael and everyone was shaking, all the prisoners shaking. Right after we did that, we just did like the high school hallway scene. Like that's the same day. That's in the same
Yeah,
location.
that was
We
my-
just
that
went
was our
a
first
little
scene.
to the left, and it's like, hey, you guys ready for the dance?
It was freezing that day. It was a freak snowstorm, and people were out there with hair dryers, like trying to get rid of all the ice. I remember how cold our feet and hands were.
I mean,
My little nose kept getting powdered up because it was bright red because I was so cold. Fun facts.
Thank you.
Did that answer your question?
I think that part of it, the whole movie was, different than a lot of the other Halloweens, but that part in particular, you've never seen Michael Myers in captivity, and, it was just all, I thought, very odd in a great way,
Thanks.
Any more hands? You got a hand.
What do you guys do to prepare for your roles?
The nice thing, and this doesn't happen on a lot of movies, we had rehearsal. We had a week of rehearsal. And it wasn't like a play rehearsal where we stand up and go on its feet. It was really just like us sitting in a room. I'm actually not sure, I'm curious to hear, because your guys' rehearsal.
Yeah.
For me and like the other teens, like we were all just like in a room with David, the director, and we just talked about it. That's all we did. We just talked about it for a whole week, and they had us there for the whole month, even though like we weren't working every day that whole month. But he said to us, he was like, "Well, you guys are playing friends, so you should be friends." And then we're all still really good friends, and I still hang out with them all the time, and they're so sweet. I love them.
They're great. remember the rehearsal period, we met up with David and we chatted a few times by email about what sort of podcast we should be listening to, and obviously I binged every single true crime podcast, and then I watched a lot of true crime documentaries, and then we had a week where Jefferson and I just met and we were like, okay, let's go around, because we didn't really know each other. We didn't know each other at all actually, but we were getting to know each other via going around Charleston and stopping off and just interviewing people on our phones and just asking like, do you believe in ghosts, or how long have you lived in Charleston? Just like really simple questions, and then we started trying to develop a style, and we naturally became a bit of a good cop, bad cop duo, just by nature of our personalities. I was the good cop. But he's not here, so I can say whatever I want. Sorry, Jefferson.
Well, I didn't really prepare since I was only there for like 3 days, but I mean, it was fun. I was really excited because I had never been on a set before. Like, they were like, Jamie Lee Curtis is in this, and I was like, who's that? So, but she's really nice and stuff. But so when we went on, I was like, oh hey everybody, and the cameras and the guy with the boomstick, and you know, it was fun. It's really fun.
Okay, unlike these guys, the only rehearsal I did was we rehearsed that long tracking shot, the Steadicam shot, and we spent a whole day rehearsing that. And they didn't think they thought we were going to have to stitch it together with CGI because it's such a difficult shot. But Stewie, the Steadicam operator, is a very good athlete, and anybody here who's played any sport knows that once you click with a fellow athlete, you're on a basketball court, you don't even need to look, you know where your guy's at. I mean, you get the sixth sense about working together, and Stuart and I really bonded because there's no marks. That was very difficult, and it was a game of inches. We had to be so tight. But when we shot a few days later, when we shot that scene, we nailed it. And when we nailed it, David came running across the set and gave me a big bear hug. He's like, dude, we got it. But as far as my character goes, what I did was, when I was called to, when I got the call to play the role, to get on, they wanted to put me on tape, so basically it's an audition. I watched Halloween one time, and all I was doing, years and years ago, there's a great old comic actor named Ted Knight. He was on the Mary Tyler Moore Show. Funny guy, he was my mom's favorite actor. When I was I just moved out to Los Angeles. I was a waiter at a restaurant. I waited on tables for 3 years before I started working as an actor and a stuntman. And he came in early, he was like in his 60s with this gorgeous 20-something, date. And he, I was like, wow, man, this guy's got it going on. And he gave me this beautiful gift. He said he somehow recognized that I was an actor, and he said, emulate. And when you emulate people, don't think about the way they walk, don't think about the way they hold their head. Reach into their heart, reach into their soul and feel what they feel, and that will drive your body to do what you want it to do, and you'll be able to imitate and emulate people perfectly. And so that's what I did. I was watching Nick Castle play the Shape, and there was a particular scene in the original film where he's walking camera left to camera right in the backyard, very quick scene, and as I was watching it, and I just said to myself, I got it. I reached into him. So the only preparation I did was creating the space for what Nick Castle created to exist inside me, and then of course it comes through me, so then it's mine now, you know what I mean? It became mine. And David never gave me any direction. The only direction I got was where I was supposed to go. The only character discussion we had was he called me after I was cast and said, hey Jimmy, I really want him to move very cat-like. And I said, well, that's kind of interesting. My cat Parcel is sitting in my lap, and I studied cat movement to play Dick Hipperstone in Buffy. I think cats are the perfect honey-killing machine. So, and that was it. That's the only character talk we had about it at all. Other than that, the only other time I talked any kind of character talk was when Chris and I would, be in there in the morning. We'd talk about things, and that was just natural flowing conversation between two creators. So you know, for me, it was a much different experience than I've ever had. And then in that process, which was really freaking cool, we would do what we were set up to do, and then David would have these ideas about, Jimmy, oh, let's try this, ooh, let's do this. And he's like a kid in a sandbox, man. He's just super excited, loves what he does. He's super, for me, was just, for all of us, but for me, it was super easy to work with. And so it was just this constant flow of creativity from beginning to end for all of us. We were all just in this creative, amazing creative flow. And so, yeah, it was a blast.
You nailed it, man.
Thanks, David. Yeah.
On that topic, with so many scenes where you're not wearing the mask, when you do don the mask, do you like have to switch? Do you have a thing that you do to make yourself different?
No, I breathe, with that particular character, I breathe in, I breathe him in to me, and I exist in that space. And then when we're done 6, 7, 8, 10 takes, whatever, when I hear the words check the gate, which means we're moving on to the next setup, then I breathe out and he's gone. I'm not me when I'm in that space. I'm in shape. And then I have to say, you know, I create, that space existed in me from the time I watched that movie and captured it. And it never changed. I didn't develop it, I didn't work on it, it was there. And once I had it. But the first time I put that mask on, dude, man, I mean, Chris showed up from Los Angeles, carried it in the bag, and when Christopher Nelson put that mask on me, everybody in the room, the directors, the producers, the stunt coordinator, everybody went, there was a collective, like it was a guttural sound, right? I mean, everybody just, and it was like two, inside me, it was like two circuits were connected, boom. And that was it. That was it, man. It was game on. Yeah, buddy. Oh no, man, they deserve it.
Oh, that's a bad question.
I feel good about it. I feel so good about it. Yeah.
This is for Christopher. What was your favorite proximity or your favorite effect?
In this movie, the mask. Other than the mask. One of my favorites was honestly Drew's death. Really, honestly was. I'm not just saying that because he's sitting right over there. But it was a cool. I was going to do that so many different ways. At one point it was going to be a dummy because at one point we were supposed to see you actually slide down the fence. He stabs him in the back of the body. He would slide down and you'd see it go into his jaw and he would get impaled. And I had these grand plans of making this animatronic dummy that was rigged to the fence, that would be jointed, so with his fake head and his rig, so the whole thing could go down and you could see it on camera. I wanted it to, David and I talked about it, shooting it wide so you saw the whole event happen on camera. And that quickly got mixed because of budget reasons. So we did the best we could, and I would have liked to have seen the actual impalement happen, but I thought the makeup and what we ended up doing turned out really well, and you played it well, and we ended up having to do that. I think it was like 4:30 in the morning, really rushed. We were supposed to have an hour and a half to do that makeup, and they went, "You have 30 minutes." And we were like, I'm like, all right. So we ran back to the trailer, and we threw it on and got him on and got him back and rigged him to the fence and put the spike through it and man, hooked up the blood and it started raining and it was a horrible night, but it turned out so good.
It was like 5 to 6 a.m.
Yeah. That was.
I actually thought, not sorry, but when we went, like when we were like, all right, it's 5 a.m., let's do the thing. And I was so, because I was like, we're up all day and I was so tired and I was like kind of disoriented. And then like, you know, Chris and Kevin lead me into the makeup trailer, and then like I go in and it's Miles' dead body, it's someone else's dead body, and it's the gas station guy's dead body. And I'm like, am I gonna die? Like, I forgot where I was. I was like, is Chris gonna kill me?
Yeah, we had in my trailer we had Miles' dummy when he gets stabbed and impaled against the wall. We had that.
And it's like, that's my friend, and it's like
yeah, and he's staring at him. And we had the father who gets his neck broken outside the bus, his dummy was in there. I love that piece. That piece turned out, if you see that piece in person, it looks like a real person. It's a really, really well done piece. I was happy with that. And I like Dr. Sartain's head getting smashed.
Dr.
I thought
Sartain's
that-
head.
Right?
Nobody
I can
ever
say-
brings that up. I was like, what the hell's wrong with you guys? We like crushed his head, and in the script it literally says, the shape, let me remember this, it says, the shape stomps on Sartain's head, his head explodes, brains shit out. That's what it said. And the whole thing became, how's the brain shitting out head going? And then David came up to me that night, he's like, so the brains are gonna shit out, right? I'm like, it's gonna be great, and they did. So,
That Sartain head freaked me out. I mean, I walk into his trailer in the morning and morning maybe 6 p.m. or whatever, but walk in and there were 2 Sartain heads sitting on a counter, and they were such perfect spitting images of him that but just 2 heads. And it always kept me off guard. I don't know why, but every single day
It was fun. It was fun to do all of it. It was just a good time. I would have liked to see more on-screen kills. I think a lot of people would have, but I think we did it tastefully, and I think that it kind of, trying to mix the old school with the new school, and just trying to get that feel. I think we did okay.
Any chance of an uncut version of re-release that you know of?
Oh, that's a David question. I have no idea. Most of what we shot is on screen.
Yeah.
There's really nothing that got cut. It's mostly.
Except for like probably 2 hours of me aggravating
That's true.
David going, stop. Do the love.
In the shower.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I was supposed to. That's a fun little Easter. Well, it's not. I think it's still in the movie, but it's super blurred out. There was like when Allison's on the phone calling Ginny. I'm forgetting her character's name, but babysitter Vicky. Oh yeah, that's okay. But I was calling Ginny. In the script it was like, and then Oscar comes up and distracts her from the phone call. And then when we got to set, it's like, oh, how do I do? I think it was written where it was like there was like a glass mirror, and I'm like tapping, and I'm like, whatever. And then it's like none of that was there. And it's like, oh, what do I do to distract her? And like me and her talking, it's like, what makes sense? What's natural? And then I figured, because in all the Halloween movies, there's one theme that bring through, which is nudity. Nudities and all. So I was like, so I asked Allison, I was like, hey, Andy, like, what if I mooned you? And she's like, yeah, that'd be really funny. I was like, so it's okay? She's like, yeah. And then I said to David, like, damn, what if I moon? He's like, all right, yeah, let's get a release form. So I signed, and then in the background, I think it's all faded out. And then the way it's cut, but yeah, I was supposed to. My butt was supposed to be. My butt was cut. That's gonna be on the.
That
That's
could
gonna
be
be on
on
the
the
release. Just my butt.
You got hard to get there, right? The release.
Yep. It was real quick. I didn't tell my mom.
Sorry. Kind of for Drew, and you mentioned it already, but a little bit. Did David Gordon Green give you some latitude to do some ad-lib? Because
Yeah, all of us basically. Like, and that was the cool thing with Rehearsal was like, oh, would you say that in real life? And I'd be like, well, no, I probably wouldn't say that one. He'd be like, great, you're not gonna say, he was very open, like, it's gonna be your voice. And actually, I forgot what the character thing. Oscar is based on David and Danny's like college friend, who still like works in the industry. He's like an editor out in LA, and he's like, here's his phone number, and talk to him and I talked to him for like 2 hours, and he's exactly what Oscar is. he's the whole shebang. And yeah, we had, it's like we did the regular takes, where it's like, let's do it as written, and we did that like, 2 or 4 or 5 times. And then it's like, and let's let's do a fun run. Let's do a couple fun runs, especially for like the scenes where it's like me in the high school and the other stuff. But
In Rehearsal, we were reading through the script, and David kept saying, well, would you say that? Because obviously I'm not British, and I just want to make sure I'm saying the right things. And so we'd be suggesting lines, and then the next day we'd get scripts under our hotel door, and it would be what we'd said and suggested, and then it kept changing, and it was brilliant because it really kept us on our toes. It kept the feel really natural. Yeah.
wow, it was very loose, which I feel, for me personally, I like that looseness, because it's like I'm and the way like my kill was shot is it's all wide. It's like I can move around if I want to. I can try stuff out, and it was total wide shots.
I love that he gave us room to play. Like, he really let us improvise, and he trusted us, and therefore we grew to trust him. And of course, you know, a few days when we were filming some of the scenes, Danny turns up and he's like joking around and saying, "How about you try saying this?" Or it's completely not what was in the scene, just to break us out of our like actor selves and keep us as real as possible. I think there's a line where just before I go into the gas station toilet, Danny comes up to me and he's like, "Just say you need a number 2. Just say it." And they kept it in the film, but that was not in the script. And I was like, "Are you doing this for the blooper reel?" And they're like, "Yeah, whatever you want." And I couldn't believe they kept that in there.
As a follow-up to Drew also, and this can kind of go through the whole panel really, but you seem a lot like your character, no offense.
Thank you, I'm a bad actor.
Okay.
I just admit it.
was there a piece of the character that you intentionally like brought out and fleshed out that not out of you, came from somewhere else?
The one thing with Oscar that I like really like attached to was like his relationship with Dylan, or I forget Cameron. I forget everyone's name because I know you're real. I'm bad at real names. It was a year ago. It's Holly. But the one thing I like really attached to in the script was like, this guy's almost obsession, stalkery even, of his best friend, of Cameron. And he like the thing I like keyed into was like, it's not that Oscar likes Allison, it's that Cameron has Allison and he just wants to be Cameron. So it's like, that's why I did it, because that's what he would do. So it's like everything I do is to impress him. And that's like the big thing I saw in the script. And yeah, I think that came through. My obsessive like, I love you, I'm gonna follow you around, I'm gonna interrupt your kiss. Please pay attention to me. And then, do you want to I'll ask you the same question. Was it mostly you as your role, or did you find something that was outside of it?
What do you mean I found something?
Like, was there something that like isn't part of you that you're like, this isn't like your character, this part is nothing like me, but I'll have fun.
Probably me clipping my toenails on the couch. That's just very unsanitary, and I would never do that in front of my babysitter. Like, just clipping my toenails. Like, well, you're in my house. What are you talking about? So, yeah, that's probably one thing I wouldn't do, and probably the swearing too. So, yeah, that was just.
Any more hands?
Yes.
If you guys could come together to do a different horror franchise, what one would you pick?
Great question, man. Wow.
Chris has one.
Oh, yeah.
I think it would have to be Friday the 13th. Yeah. I would like to do a Friday the 13th, the way that I see it in my head, and the way that I thought it should go. Like when they remade it recently, well, not recently, that was 10 years ago, right? Jeez. I had such high hopes for it, and I didn't like it. I know a lot of people did, but I wasn't crazy about it. Because I like the idea of kind of like we were talking on the plane about that director